Hi, all, and welcome to today's session on recovery programs available for small businesses. I am Emma Rose Cantor from Pursuit. I am joined by our partners at Evergreen, and we are going to get started in just another moment. Hang tight. Thank you all for being on time. We'll give our other attendees a moment to log on, get situated. For those of you that are online, I'll point out there's a question and answer section on your screen here. Throughout the presentation, you can drop in questions there and we will answer them as we go. But for now, sit tight and we'll get started in just a moment. Hi all, if you're just joining us, we're giving folks another minute to log on. We will get started in just one more minute, so sit tight. Thanks for joining. All right, looks like we have a critical mass here. Thank you all for joining today's session on small business recovery programs that are available right now. I am Emma Rose Cantor. I'm from Pursuit, and I'm joined by Natalie from Evergreen. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the programs from the state that are available for small businesses as they navigate this COVID environment. So I will pass the baton to Natalie.
There I am. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Emma, and thank you for co-hosting this with us and for organizing it. My name is Natalie Wisniewski. I'm the Entrepreneurship Services Manager at Evergreen. We are a nonprofit industrial economic development corporation located in North Brooklyn. And we work as such primarily with industrial manufacturing businesses in our catchment area, but also throughout the 5 boroughs. And one of the main things that we do on a good non-pandemic related day is we do help folks with access to capital and getting financing. So Pursuit has been a great partner to us and to a lot of our businesses over the years, and particularly in the last year with getting all of the different pandemic relief options out to folks. So we're partnering on this webinar, and for folks that are in, that know us and that are in our catchment area or industrial businesses in the city, feel free to reach out to me. Our contact information is later on for technical assistance with this financing or with other questions going forward. And thanks again, Emma, for taking the reins on the rest of the program, but I'll see you all a little bit later and we'll be harnessing your questions. Quick question for you, Emma, do you want me to stop you at all, or will you be taking some breaks to address the questions?
I'll take some breaks.
Okay, cool, perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks everyone for being here.
great. So, we at Pursuit are a community-focused lender where businesses can access more than 15 different loan programs that provide financing from $10,000 all the way up to $5.5 million, all with affordable rates and terms. And our mission is simple. It's to provide businesses with affordable loans and resources so that they can reach higher, transform, and grow. So to give you a sense of this, in the last year alone, we provided more than $250 million in funding through 520 business loans, creating more than 2,900 jobs for our clients. And in addition, we've provided more than 11,000 COVID-19 relief loans to businesses in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. So today's presentation on relief programs is right in our sweet spot. So what we'll do is give an overview of some of the key programs that you should be aware of at this moment. So the first thing you might have heard of is that you might be eligible for payment relief from the SBA. So for certain 7A, 504, and microloans, the Federal Small Business Administration will pay principal, interest, and fees. And if you think you might qualify for this, you should contact your lender who can provide more information and guidance there. So we won't spend too much time on that today. There are also tons of local programs and industry-specific support that you should be aware of and know about. But today's presentation will focus on two key programs for New York-based businesses: the New York Forward Loan Fund and the New York State Recovery Grant Program. So the New York Forward Loan Fund provides loans of up to $100,000. So these are loans that will need to be paid back. It's low interest loans targeted for small businesses, nonprofits, and landlords. The Small Business Recovery Grant Program, also a state program, is, as its name suggests, a grant program. So you would not have to pay this money back, and it's providing grants of up to $50,000 for small businesses. So on this program, nonprofits and landlords are not eligible to apply. Some nuances here in the eligibility requirements. So on the New York Forward Loan Fund side, businesses need to have received less than $500,000 in PPP loans and less than $150,000 in EIDL loans in order to qualify to apply for the New York Forward Loan Program. New York State Recovery Grant Program, just to make it as confusing as possible, has a completely different threshold. So on this side, it's businesses who've received less than $100,000 in PPP funding. Also, businesses cannot have received any restaurant revitalization grant funding. So slightly different eligibility requirements. These are in place to ensure that these state programs reach the businesses who haven't received significant aid through other government programs. Our role is also slightly different on the two programs. So on the New York Forward side, we at Pursuit as the lender evaluate the applications, we approve them, and we underwrite them. We are your lender. On the New York State Recovery Grant side, we and our partners at Evergreen and others across the state are just here to help you apply. So we don't get to make any eligibility decisions. All of the final calls on who gets the grant and who doesn't are made by the New York State government. So we are here to be your helper and your advocate, but it's important to know that the state ultimately has the decision-making power on the grant program. So the rest of the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about each of these programs. On the New York Forward Loan Fund side, we are providing loans of up to $100,000 to support, as I said, businesses, nonprofits, and small landlords through the COVID crisis. It's a 5-year term loan with rates fixed at 3% and interest-only payments for the first 12 months. So really, excellent terms. As I mentioned, there are restrictions here. So this is reserved for businesses that did not receive more than 150K in EIDL or more than 500K in Paycheck Protection Program, and that's across both funding rounds of PPP. And if you're interested in learning more, you can apply directly through the state website, or you can contact us at Pursuit with this number right here, and we're happy to talk you through the eligibility requirements and all of that. That's our brief overview of the New York Forward Loan Fund. Have any questions come in on the loan fund side?
Not yet for the loan fund, so I think we're good there.
Great.
Although, you know what, Emma, I actually have a question. If folks
Sure.
go to the state website, can they go directly to you? Because I know from the state website, it takes all the information, and then there's other lenders also there, and it distributes it to the different lenders. Is it okay for them to come directly to you as opposed to going through that portal?
Yeah, absolutely. We can start an application on our side as well.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that, because I know that some of the clients I've dealt with have gotten to that point and then have been confused about if they can do it or not. So I just wanted folks to know that.
Great point of clarification.
Have a couple of questions that did come in now, so I can go ahead and ask. So one question from David is basic paperwork requirements for the loan fund.
Sure. So my colleagues on the intake team probably have this memorized like the back of their hand, but it's basic personal financial statements. So we'll need your personal tax returns for 19 and 20, as well as a personal financial statement, which talks about like debt, basically. We'll need your business financial information. So business tax returns from 19 and 20. And schedule of ownership, so things like the contact information for any co-owners. I'm trying to think if there are any other, a debt schedule, which basically talks about on the business side, like what other debt you currently have outstanding, and we do an analysis on, debt service coverage ratios there. And I think that might be it, but don't quote me on it. We have all of the requirements up on our website, and anyone at our Pursuit, central line, which is right here on the screen, and any one of our intake staff will be able to tell you for sure. I don't think I forgot anything, but I might have. IDs, government IDs.
Yeah, and also at the website that she has here, the newyorkloanfund.com, it has all of the requirements listed out. Great. So the next question is, if I owe New York State taxes, am I eligible?
So on the New York Forward loan side, the answer is maybe. It depends on whether you have an agreed upon payment plan and whether you are current on that payment plan. On the New York State grant side, it's a sort of similar answer. They want to see that you are current on a payment plan for any outstanding taxes owed.
Great, but that is a good question, because like all of the other stuff, that varies between all of the funds, so it's always worth to ask about that. All right, so next question on the loan fund from Brad is one question about New York Forward. Does that relief program you mentioned at the top offer any help with payback on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the SBA, the Small Business Administration Relief, does not cover New York Forward loan payments. That just covers small business administration loans. So 7A, 504, which is for property purchases, and microloans. So for some of our businesses, it does make sense to pair a New York Forward loan with a small microloan. And that way you can get the relief. There are lots of other benefits that come with a microloan, like access to consultants who can help you work on any sort of capacity building project, like building out your website or doing an inventory analysis, all sorts of stuff. And so if it makes sense for the business, our underwriters will sometimes match a New York Forward loan with a microloan, which would potentially qualify for that payment relief. But the New York Forward loan itself doesn't, because this is a state program and the SBA relief is a federal one.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, and I believe if you want to put in the question, if I'm not in the question box, if I'm not putting this together correctly, but I believe the next question is, what is the minimum FICO score for the New York Forward Loan Fund?
It's a good question. I actually don't remember where the state has set the requirement around FICO score, but encourage you to apply if you think you might be eligible, and we can evaluate it with an application.
Okay, great. Yeah, since one thing with since it's underwritten more like a traditional loan, there's a little bit, I think, more flexibility than I think folks have gotten used to, like the PPP or maybe even like the grant, where there's really hard requirements, and if you don't get it, then you just don't get it at all. With the with loans, there's much more due diligence, so it takes longer, but there's the potential for some more flexibility, so that's great.
Yeah.
Okie dokie, so we did those. And then a follow-up on that is if it's a hard credit score, a hard pull for the New York Forward loan.
It is a good question. I know that for at the beginning of the process, it's just a soft pull as we're deciding whether or not to develop a full application. Eventually, it may in fact be a hard pull in order to qualify for the state program. But these are great detailed questions that probably are better for our pursuit loan officers. So definitely encourage you to reach out either to this phone number or I can follow up with this business afterwards and connect you directly.
Great. And I think that is it for now. The question with the New York State taxes we answered before, but it is unfortunately, it depends. So do go ahead and apply for that. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. So now this was our New York Forward Loan Fund program. The rest of the presentation is going to talk through our New York State Recovery Grant program. So basic overview on this is that the program provides grants of up to $50,000 to small businesses that have faced economic hardship during the pandemic. And here it is not a first come, first served program. Rather, priority is being given to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners. And we'll talk a little bit about the guidance that the state has given on how they're defining those terms. But at a high level, the eligibility criteria are that businesses have to have between $25,000 and $500,000 in annual revenue in either 2019 or 2020. So you only need one of those 2 years to qualify you in that eligible revenue range. In addition, when we compare 2019 to 2020's revenue, the state is looking to see at least a 25% loss in revenue from 19 down to 20. And businesses must have reported a net operating profit in 2019. So unfortunately, if you reported a loss on your 2019 taxes, you would not be eligible for the recovery grant program. In addition, businesses need to have fewer than 100 employees, be founded on or before March 1st of 2019. They have to be organized and operating in New York State. And this bullet here, no open tax judgments, has sort of an invisible asterisk here, because if you have a payment plan on a tax judgment or lien and you are current on that payment plan, then you are eligible to apply. And again, if you've received Paycheck Protection Program loans, you have to have at least $100,000 or less in PPP in order to qualify, and you can't have received any restaurant revitalization grant funding. So you are not eligible to apply for this grant program if you received the restaurant revitalization grant. Other businesses who are not eligible for this program include nonprofits, landlords. So in this case, we need a business to be making its money via sales. So nonprofits and landlords don't qualify. Government-owned entities, elected officials' offices, and then political or lobbying organizations are not eligible to apply. I'll pause there. We'll get into lots more detail about these items in a sec. Any broad questions?
There is not a broad question. There's a specific question that, I mean, I can just go ahead and throw it in right now. It's was the question, our first question, about if I'd love to learn whether any funds have started to be distributed for this program.
Yeah, so a handful, a very small handful of folks have heard that they've been approved for the program. I actually don't know whether the funds have actually made it to those businesses yet, but we do know that, you know, thousands of businesses have applied and have not yet heard. So if you have applied already and you're waiting to hear back, it's not a bad sign. It's not a warning flag about your application at all. It's just that the state is working to evaluate all of these applications as they can.
And that is all that we have at the moment.
Great. Okay, so a little bit more detail here on the annual revenue requirements. So eligible businesses must have, as I said, between $25,000 and $500,000 in gross receipts in either 2019 or 2020. And their 2020 gross receipts must be at least 25% less than their 2019 gross receipts. So give a couple examples here. So our first business had $100,000 in 2019, $75,000 in 2020. They both years' receipts were within that eligible range for that first bullet, and they experienced a 25% loss in revenue. So they meet both of our annual revenue requirements, and they are eligible for the program. This second business here had $520,000 in 2019, so a little bit outside of our eligible range, but their 2020 revenue was $260,000. So they qualify for that first bullet using their revenue in 2020. In addition, they experienced a significant enough loss year over year. In fact, they experienced a 50% loss, well above the 25% required. And so that business would also be eligible for the program. This third business had $450,000 in 19, $600,000 in 2020. So while they qualify in the eligible range with that $450,000 in 2019, they didn't experience a loss in revenue year over year. In fact, they made more money in 2020 than they did in 19. And so this business would not be eligible for the program. Our next business here had $100,000 in 19, $90,000 in 2020. While both years' revenue qualified them for the first bullet, they only experienced a moderate loss year over year, only a 10% loss. And so this business is not eligible for the program. And then finally, this last business had $800,000 in 19, $600,000 in 2020. So while they qualified with a big enough loss, neither year's revenue falls into the eligible range. So they also are not eligible for this program. Key point here is that revenue loss for this program is going to be calculated year over year. So other programs have used, a quarter comparisons or a month even. This program is looking at your annual taxes, and so they're comparing year over year. The only exception to this rule is for businesses that were founded between January and March of 2019. So if you were founded March 1st, 2019, the state will compare March to December 19 and March to December 2020. For all other businesses, they're just looking at your full year over year difference. So that was our annual revenue requirements. The state is also looking to see that businesses reported a net operating profit of at least $1 in their 2019 tax returns. So businesses don't need to have made a profit in 2020. The state is not looking at the difference in profit from 19 to 20. When it comes to this net profit requirement, they're looking at that one line on your tax returns for your operating profit, and they just want to see that it was a positive number on your 19 taxes. Again, if you reported a loss in 2019, you would not be eligible to apply for this program, unfortunately. Other grant awards. So as I mentioned, businesses are not going to be eligible for the New York State Recovery Grant Program if they've received more than $100,000 in PPP loans, and that's across both rounds of PPP and regardless of forgiveness status of those loans, or any amount of restaurant revitalization grant funding. So those are really the two restrictions here, but businesses who meet the other requirements will be eligible even if they've received the grant advance for EIDL, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, or any of the government loan programs like New York Forward, which we just talked about, or the federal government's EIDL loans. I'll pause here. Any questions come up about annual revenue, net profit, other grant awards?
Nope. There's just one general question about where to apply for this grant and what the timeline after application is.
Great. We will share that information in just a few slides. Before we get there, I'll just talk a little bit more about the details here. So the grant award is calculated based on your 2019 gross receipts. So if your 2019 top line revenue number was between $25,000 and $50,000, you'll get a flat grant award of $5,000. If your revenue was between $50,000 and $100,000, you'll get a flat grant award of $10,000. Once you hit that $100,000 threshold, your grant award will be 10% of your 2019 gross receipts up to $50,000. So if you made $200,000 in 2019, you'll get a grant of $20,000. If you made $300,000 in 19, you'll get a grant of $30,000. And the pattern holds true up until that maximum grant of $50,000. So this is a quick note about timing here. So again, the Recovery Grant Program is not first come, first served. The state is evaluating all of the applications that they receive during the open enrollment period, which is still happening. And instead, they're going to prioritize based on a whole host of factors. And they haven't told us even how exactly those factors will be weighed against each other, but they have told us that the factors include business type, geography, industry, and that they'll be prioritizing in particular socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, which they've defined as including but not even being limited to minority and women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and those located in economically distressed communities. And so here you can see a map of where those communities are. Most folks in New York City would qualify under that last bullet, but if you have any questions about your eligibility here, happy to work with you one-on-one to think through. The important part here is that they might have enough funding to fund everyone who meets the eligibility criteria. So even if you're not in one of these priority groups here, they're definitely encouraging anyone who qualifies to apply and take their shot at this grant money. So required documents. There are just 4 documents that are required to apply. Your application certification, which is a program document that you'll initial and sign at the bottom. We'll need both years of tax returns, so 2019 and 2020, and that's however you file your business taxes on whatever form you usually file. An important note here, we have heard quite a few businesses have filed for extensions on their 2020 business income tax returns. The state is asking that those returns be filed before a business applies to the grant program. So in terms of order of operations, I would focus on getting those tax returns complete with your accountant before starting an application here. And then last document that's required to apply is your government ID. If you're approved, they'll ask you for some more supporting documents like a schedule of ownership, your most recent New York State 45 document. If you're an employer firm, that covers withholdings and proves that you are in fact a small business. They'll ask for proof of business location, showing that you're currently in operation, proof of business organization, showing that you're authorized to operate in New York State, and then a W-9 and bank account information for disbursement. Now, again, those are only required if you're approved for the program. Just these top 4 documents are required to apply. But even on those first 4 documents, the good news is that you can submit your eligibility form first, and then you have 14 days to gather those 4 required documents. So it's sort of a 2-part application. You fill out an eligibility form, you click submit, an email gets generated, sent to your inbox with a login to the document portal, and that's when you have the option to upload those required documents. And again, if you need more time, that's totally okay. You'll have 2 weeks from when you submit your eligibility form to upload the rest of those documents. And that process is something that we're working with our clients and anyone on the call who's interested in going through, one-on-one with you all. But to get to that business's question, what do you do if you're ready to apply? So you can apply directly through the New York State portal. Unlike some of the other grant programs, there's no need to go through an assistance provider like Pursuit or Evergreen. And the New York State portal website is nysmallbusinessrecovery.com. And we'll send out these slides afterwards, but it's linked right here as well. If you want some more help thinking about the best way to position, yourself or whether you actually are eligible, you can contact Natalie, you can contact Pursuit, and you can see all of our contact information here. Natalie, is there anything I forgot to say about any of this or any questions that have come up?
I don't think that you missed anything with reference to the slides that you went over. There are currently no questions in the queue. So I don't know, if anybody else has any further questions, please post them now so that we can get them answered.
Well, while you're thinking, I'll just underscore that both we at Pursuit and our partners at Evergreen are here to help. And if we can be of assistance in any way, whether that's looking with you at your documents, talking you through the eligibility requirements in your specific situation, or even submitting an application on your behalf, I definitely encourage you to get in touch. We at Pursuit have set up a special inbox for this program, and that's granthelp@pursuitlending.com. And it sounds like from the Evergreen side, you can email Natalie directly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if anybody is in North Brooklyn or is an industrial manufacturing business that would like assistance, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to assist you. And I did also just want to give a quick shout out to one other program that if folks are in New York City, the city currently, they reopened their New York City LMI storefront loan program, which actually Pursuit is also processing because they're, doing everything. But if this is a loan program, it's a 0% loan up to 100K, and it's 60-month term, but it's specific for businesses that are located in certain zip codes and census tracts that are based on LMI criteria. So the program is called NYC LMI Storefront Loan Program. If you Google that, it'll come up. But if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me as well, because that's another, obviously we couldn't cover every single thing on this program. And unfortunately, there are not too many more options, but that's a good program for some folks that happen to be in those geographies that I just wanted to mention. So, well, we don't have any other questions in the queue.
Well, great. Then let us know if anything else comes up. We'll follow up shortly with these slides and more information on how to apply. But thank you all for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you to everyone who participated.